Why is it that we still celebrate the lives of people like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr.? We literally have a holiday to remember what he did. Why is it that we love watching movies like The Fugitive or Shawshank Redemption? Why is it that in literature class in high school, still today in English class, people are still assigned to read To Kill a Mockingbird? Why? Because we care about, our heart goes out to those who suffer innocently, who suffer while they're doing good, the wrongfully convicted. We care about those people because we realize the sense of injustice in it. So what I want to challenge you today is to suffer like Jesus. We're learning right now, especially in this section of 1 Peter that we've been going through in these daily devotionals, that we've been learning that we need to live in hope. And to live in hope changes our actions. It changes our actions. We will be different from the people around us. We'll stand out. And I think one of the ways we do this is to suffer like Jesus. Suffer like Jesus. In 1 Peter chapter 2, Peter writes in verses 18 through 23, he writes, "Slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. For it is commendable if someone bears up under the pain of unjust suffering, because they are conscious of God." Now, we in our society today, of course, have outlawed slavery, but it was a very real thing in the first century when Peter was writing. And he said, if you are a slave, if you find yourself in that situation, you need to suffer, but not suffer because you're being beaten or lashed for doing wrong, but for doing right. Sometimes you do suffer, and that is what you should do. He continues in verse 20. "But how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. To this you were called because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly." See, Jesus trusted God to take care of the situation if there was injustice. Jesus suffered righteously. He did nothing wrong. He was innocent. He was perfect. So we need to suffer like Jesus. So though we may not be slaves, sometimes we have bad bosses. Sometimes we have difficult circumstances. Maybe if you're a kid watching, you have a parent that you're struggling with. We have different people that we struggle with. Maybe there is a governing authority, like we talked about in yesterday's video, that we struggle to deal with, and we even suffer under them. It is unfair, but we follow the example of Jesus. That's what it said, follow his example. He set you an example. That word example in the Greek was literally the words that was used for like copying a letter. It was an example that kids would use to learn their alphabet. Okay, that's following the example, is writing exactly like the letter. So we look to Jesus' life, how he suffered, and we try to mimic it, imitate it. And he suffered while never sinning. So we too must suffer like Jesus.